What's up guys, I'm Allie and this is Treat Your Shelf. So what I'm going to do today is a book reader problem book tag. And tags are a really cool thing because you just kind of get to know me and my reading habits and my reading style. Some tags are like what's on my bookshelf, stuff like that, but I do not have my full bookshelf this summer, so we're going to do a different kind of reading tag. And so there's 9 questions. There's 11 questions, actually. And it's just talking about like some reading problems, pet peeves, stuff like that. So I'm just going to read these off and answer them for you guys. So without further ado, let's get to it. Okay, so the first question is you have 20,000 books in your TBR, which means to be read. How in the world do you decide what to read next? So usually while I'm reading a book, one will just pop into my head, honestly. I don't really have like a official list of like TBR books. So one will like pop into my head, or I'll get like really in the mood for a thriller or something like that, and then I'll look at my shelf and just kind of decide. So I don't really have a system for that. So it's just very like on the whim, whatever I feel like at the moment. So the second one is you're halfway through a book and you're just not loving it. Do you put it down or are you committed? I am committed. I do not put down books. Like unless it's like a classic or something and I'm just like really not in the mood for a classic, I don't really put down books. Usually I'm committed. They're like usually on my bookshelf, so I feel like I have to read them because like I bought them and I spent money on them. So usually I end them. Sometimes I'll like switch to a different book and then come back to the other book that I'm like really not feeling. But I usually do end them, and especially like sometimes endings like kind of changed my opinion of the book. So I feel like I'm doing an injustice if I don't get to the end. So that's kind of how I am with like DNFs and stuff like that. So the third one is the end of the year is coming and you're behind on your reading challenge. Do you try to catch up? And if so, how? I normally don't try to catch up because I feel like if I am just like rushing through a book, I'm not really enjoying it. And so I kind of go at my own pace. I'm a perfectionist, so I feel like I would be disappointed in myself if I didn't reach my reading challenge or whatever, but most of the time I do, so most of the time this isn't really a big problem for me. If I really wanted to catch up, I would probably just start like reading like shorter books on my bookshelf, just so that I feel like I'm accomplishing more than I actually am reading a long book. So that's probably the route that I would pick. So number 4, the covers of a series you love do not match. How do you cope? This is my pet peeve. So I don't like when people like just like books because of their covers. Like it's annoying to me. It really should just be the content of the book that you love. So this really does not apply to me. Like this question, cover of series you love don't match. How do you cope? I just read it. Like it doesn't really matter for me. So whatever. Everyone and their mother loves a book that you do not. Who do you bond with over your shared feelings? So I usually do 3 types of things. I go on a booktuber called Gabby Reads. She usually like has very similar opinions. So I usually go on there if it's like a really new book and I know she's like gonna read it and review it and stuff. And so I usually bond kind of by myself with like videos like that, and like I just feel validated in my opinion. The second thing is I go on Goodreads and I look at the reviews and stuff, and so I feel like normally things match up to like what I'm feeling, or I'll write my own review just so that I get my voice out there. And then the third thing is I confide in Steven about it and I like rage and rant about it, and he just usually sits there and listens even though he has no idea what I'm talking about. So that's my 3 little like things that I do with that. You're reading a book in public and you're about to start crying. How do you deal? I don't really cry for most books. Like it has to be a very touching, like close to home personal experience that I've experienced that is in the book for me to cry about it. But there was one time when I was on an airplane and I did start crying a little bit, and I just kind of had to like shut it off, like do some Stuco and on my phone and just kind of like get away from that, and then I'd come back to it later, kind of be in a better headspace for it. So that's probably how I deal in public with that, but most of the time I don't really cry. The sequel to a book you love just came out, but you've forgotten a lot of what happens. Are you going to reread it? Yes, I will reread it. Most of the sequels, like I don't really read a lot of series, but if they do come out, I usually like remember a lot of like the prequels and stuff, but if I don't feel like I'm like ready in my mind to do it, I will definitely reread it just because it's worth it to me. I don't want to be lost. Like, it's like watching the second one of like a movie and being like, I have no idea what the first movie was about, so I have to go back and watch it. So it's kind of the same little instance with that. You do not want anyone to borrow your books. How do you politely say no when someone asks? So I'm very protective over my books. I feel like I usually just let my family members borrow books. But I mean, I am a very blunt person, so I'll straight up say no. Like, I don't think that you're gonna return it, so sorry. You have picked up and put down 5 books in the last month. How do you get over this reading slump? I don't go into reading slumps usually. Like, usually I'm like just trying to like figure out what I'm gonna read next, and that's kind of like the slump that I go through after I've just finished a book. But I'll probably either read like a chapter from a book to see if I'm into it, or like I'll go on Netflix and stuff and like binge watch stuff until I'm like, I need to read a book, and my brain is like shattering with all these TV shows. So that's usually what I do, but I don't really get into reading slumps a lot. There are so many books coming out that you're dying to read. How many do you end up buying? Well, I'm a cheapskate, so I don't end up buying most of them. If I have like a gift card or something, like I will go off, like I will buy them and stuff like that. But most of the time I like stick to my dollar bookstore or like Book Outlet and stuff like that, and then just wait. Like, I've always done that with like movies and all that other stuff. Something that I'm really dying to read, like I might splurge or like ask for it for a present or something, but most of the time I'm not gonna splurge on books just because I know that I'll get them cheaper like on a later date. And then the last question is, after you purchase all of these books that you're dying to read, how long do they sit on your shelves before you get to read them? It really depends. Like, some that I'm really looking forward to, I'll just like go ahead and read. But others, like, I kind of want to just like savor the moment of like having that book unread on my shelf. So I'll like keep it on my shelf, read something else. But most of the time, like the temptation, just like I give into it and go ahead and read it if I'm like really dying to read it. Like I said before, it's very rare that I buy a lot of new books. So usually when I buy new books, like I'll read them right off the bat. But that was all the questions. So that was kind of just like a little bit about me and all of the pet peeves that I have in reading and my readers' problems. And so if you have similar problems like that, comment below and just let me know. Don't forget to subscribe.